Like we look like Beauty and the Beast.
You can be my
Yeah,
beast.
I had to take a couple of extra minutes in the bathroom because I had just treated my my third eye this morning because it gets all red, and I put lotion on it, and it's only a few hours later, and I went over there, and it was all worse than it was.
Oh,
So there's got to be something to this. These physical, these physical conditions that we're having as a result of what's going on with us. Wow,
yeah.
it's been what, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks since we saw each other. Well,
About
I
probably
got,
about a month.
yeah, I got sick on the 10th, and I think we had done a
Mm.
show the week before. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, so much has changed since
I
then.
know.
God,
I know. It's
like,
been an amazing time.
yeah, it has been. It really has been. I think we're good. Let's see. Well, let me see. So we're getting suppressed. Uh, so if you guys don't mind sharing to one page or to one group, that'd be cool. We don't normally ask that. And then also thank you everyone for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this every day. Yeah, it's been quite a month. Like this month is just really, I think you could take all the months since 2012 and stack them together, and they wouldn't be able to match October. In October, we still got what, 2 days, 3 days, two or
Yeah,
3 days.
29th today, so two more. Well, yeah, 2 days. I know. It'll be a good turning point to get out of October.
Well, it's been interesting. It's been interesting. I saw an interesting post in Soulogy today. I always appreciate people speaking their mind. I think sometimes, so we all done it. You speak your truth and call someone out, and you start to question: do we need to do that? Are you right about what you said? And how do you know? And
Yeah,
but we're like in that atmosphere where you've got to let people, where we all have to. We all have to step up, and sometimes what we say might not be, well, probably every time won't be 100%. But and then of course the people, so many people, or more and more people transitioning. There's you know people going to the hospital. I know 3 people. Everyone probably knows them. They all went. They all have symptoms. They go to the hospital and they can't, and they get discharged because they can't find anything wrong with them.
yeah.
So that's why we have you here.
Well, it's been a quite an amazing roller coaster through the whole of October, and all the incoming energies have been so extreme that it's knocking people sideways, inside out, upside down, and it is time now that as I receive more and more guidance, that we have to hold that faith, that belief and trust, um, more than ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely more than ever, because someone said to me last week, because the energy last week was at the most intense, and someone said to me, can you speak to Anna and see what she suggests we do to get through this? And I said I wouldn't even have the cheek to ask Anna, because she's given us, and we have so many tools at our disposal to get through these intense waves, that they can't give us anything more until we're utilizing fully what we have. Um,
Makes
and
sense to me.
yeah, and I did talk with her, and I said, I understand that we have everything. And she said the art in surviving this time is to remember.
Yeah. Isn't that the theme for the whole awakening? To
Absolutely.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about remembering. When I teach people, when I teach spiritual development, healing, whatever it is I'm teaching, I can't teach you anything you don't know. I am simply the facilitator and the inspirer to remember. You know, and if I play my role properly, then, you know, I can't be under any illusion or delusional that there's anything new I can teach anybody, because we have it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just parts of it's locked away within us, and it's accessing the knowledge, the wisdom, the memories. It's accessing it. You know, and I see these sort of matrix within us that if we follow the light, the sort of thread of the matrix to any part of it that we need to access in order to facilitate something within ourselves, it's like I see it like a web. And, you know, as those neurons in your brain fire up because you have a thought, there's nothing stopping the light of a neuron moving through the matrix within you and around you to go to the solution, the answer, or whatever it is we need to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And it is tapping in. You know, people say to me, teach me how to connect. I can't teach you how to connect because you're not disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can facilitate you to align with that connection. So there's a lot of acceleration in facilitating right now. And, you know, there's many teachers out there, spiritual teachers, coaches, guides, whatever they want to be called. And the demand is growing. The demand for somebody who can facilitate the awakening, the awareness, the ascension, the enlightenment. And, you know, I say it's a job for life, but actually it's a life that is worth the effort, the work, and the time, because it's so precious. So precious, Todd. And you know, I know, and so many people out there know, we're here to live, not to exist.
True. And not
You
to
know,
survive either.
no.
Not
I
to
mean,
survive.
when the ego was created 13,000 years ago in the minds of human beings, it was simply to navigate through the darkness as consciousness fell from fifth to third, and it became part of that reptilian brain that, you know, it was to survive the darkness. Well, we're out of the darkness. We don't need to survive anymore. We need to live. There's many of us that will not come back here after this lifetime, either because we don't have to or we choose not to, and there will be some that choose to come back. But that choice will be simply because we have fulfilled the soul purpose and the global purpose and the universal purpose of what we came here to do.
Yeah.
And that is to get Earth back to where it needs to be in that cosmic realm. And for me, it's so exciting.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the sleepless nights and the physical, you know, they're all like this, you know, this whole thing with my face. And, but yeah, there's, I had some friends come in last night. I haven't had anybody come by in months and months and months. No one stepped in this house other than me, except Morgan, since April.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just had this time of, you know, it was perfect. They rolled in right after my last show, and we hung out, and they got up this morning, had coffee. They're gone, but it was almost surreal.
Yeah.
To be in the presence of others and you know, sharing the same frequency. But the other thing you said too that I wanted to go back to was when you checked in with Anna. You have everything. You have more than enough to navigate. And you being one of us, so we're all the same. But you know, to navigate what's happening in October and in November and December in 2022. And I think about practitioners or even my own limited, you know, one-on-ones helping people occasionally, you know, this really goes back earlier in my first few years. But that whole thing where a practitioner will share tools and share a modality,
Yeah.
and and then what happens, not always, I'm just saying it's the same thing, where 5 weeks later they'll come back and say, can you help me?
Yeah.
And it's the same
Yeah.
scenario. It's the same.
Absolutely.
And so what you were saying is that, like, when someone comes to you, like if somebody wants to connect to their higher self, uh, you're basically saying to them, you're already there. You just think you can't. That's the
Yeah.
whole point. And so, but I think what I'm getting at really is, I think that I feel that the people that we interact with, they they have a desire. We all have a desire to expand, and that's innate.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
I'm teaching a course tomorrow and Sunday to a group of people, and it's about that level of connection we have to all levels of consciousness.
Mm.
It'll incorporate working with intuition. It will incorporate working with mediumship, entities, beings, elementals, whatever is needed in those 2 days. But the fundamental basic about having access to any type of guidance, whether we are working with a human being or a spiritual being or even a multidimensional being, the fundamental basic, Todd, is to know that we are all whole. And when we're working as an individual being, everything that is within us in that level of consciousness is in equal parts. So I kind of drew this pie chart, and it was divided into 7 sections, all equal sections, and each section was a part of the whole of one human being. But those sections consisted of the self, the higher self, the spirit, guides. We had consciousness itself, we had God, and then we had the energy of Anu. And in that circle, that pie chart of equal quantities of all of those levels of consciousness, that's what's within each individual person. So we don't have to access anything from outside of ourselves. Hermes said, as above, so below, as within, so without.
Yeah.
So, even if I go immediately from self to Anu, then I'm only circling within myself to find that part of my consciousness. So in these times, people have got to understand or recognize within themselves that anything they search without, they're not going to find, because everything's within.
Yeah.
What's the link that's missing is the understanding of how, why, where, and when you can access all of those parts of yourself that we are all a part of anyway.
Yeah, we're like, our human is like the bridge, right?
Exactly.
And it's just the belief systems that we have that make us think that the bridge isn't complete, or we don't have
Yeah.
a bridge, or
Yeah. It's like walking through one door to the next, to the next, to the next. Every single door is open, every single door is accessible, but it's remembering to access them. And you talk about the bridge. Some of us are bridges to other dimensions as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's a big responsibility to bridge a dimension. But those bridges to the other dimensions enable the higher levels of consciousness, or the outer levels of consciousness, that are also within us, but are harder to access because of the human mind.
Mm-hmm. But they are within us.
Totally.
It's the same. And what about this? It just feels to me like the death, the death program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just saying this because of Franco's transition,
No.
but it just feels like the death program is up. Like every time I get on the news feed, it's, can you send me prayers? Can you send my relative prayers? Can you send my friend prayers? Can you send whatever. There's a lot of that. And it just seems like with the death program, there's this part of the program that's up, which is almost like saying, don't send it. It's not that about that. It's about don't send that to anyone. Send it to yourself.
Yeah.
Because by sending it to yourself, you're like raising your frequency, and that's the best thing that we can do. And that's like totally against our conditioning. But do you feel like that's it sure seems like it's getting louder?
It is getting louder, and the information I received last year, I think I might have shared this with you before, but at the beginning of last year, I was told that every single living human being on the planet, consciously or unconsciously, was given the opportunity to rewrite the end of their blueprint.
At the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And to rewrite the, what did you say? The ending of the original blueprint?
Of their blueprint. Yeah, their purpose, life purpose.
Okay.
And those that chose to check out sooner than perhaps they should have done, were giving the planet the opportunity to be less dense through the human being in order for the planet to raise its vibration. So we went through the beginning of the pandemic, and lots of people were checking out, and then it slowed down, and then it accelerated again, and then it slowed down, and now it's accelerating in different ways. And whether you call it the death process or the earth vacation having multiple meanings, are those people that are checking out now, or are those that are asking for prayer, transitioning through the vacation of a planet so that they can accelerate their own growth through the levels of consciousness to return here to bring it back?
Yeah. So they're serving like in the Trinity capacity. They're serving themselves, they're serving us, and they're serving the collective. And yeah, because I remember Morgan pulled that down around that time, the first 3 months of pull down the COVID stuff and what it was, but also that when these people that were leaving were essentially taking shadow with them as much as they could, so that, like you just said, basically changing the consciousness of the earth or accelerating the change of the consciousness. It's not a bad thing.
No.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Is like I got all these messages from people offering condolences, and I just put a heart on them, and I appreciated it. But I feel like saying I'm fine. I'm celebrating his expansion, which is our expansion.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's like sooner or later we got to get off this death program because it's not even real. And we're already in this walk the talk thing in 2021. So why would we make an exception to any program, especially the biggest one out there?
Exactly. I mean, why should we even be calling it a death program?
True.
Because
I stand corrected. Thank you.
No, it's fine.
No, that's a good point. It's a great point.
Because something else that Anna keeps telling me is we have to be mindful of the language we're using.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
When we work with the children, the ICU program that we facilitate, we work with these divine little beings of light that have so much power. And when we work with them, Todd, we never ever say no to one of those children. Through a whole session, through a whole program, we never use the word no with them. Okay. The other thing we never do is we never ask them a question.
You never ask them a question?
No. So if they've got their blindfold on and their outer consciousness is working with them, and they're seeing without their physical eyes, the reason we never ask them a question is because a question has to be answered by the left side of their brain. Because a question has to be logical. So instead of saying, what colors do you see on the page? We say to the children, tell me what color you see.
Yeah.
We command an answer.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're very mindful and heartfelt about how we speak with the children, because we want them to stay in a right brain consciousness, to bring the left brain online, so that we have what we call the heart brain coherence that these children develop through the program. Okay, and they go on to do quite incredible things, like change whole family lifestyles, dynamics, just by going through this program. So I quite often say to adults, stop asking questions. If you want to know something, command an answer. So instead of saying to you, Todd, how do you feel today? I would say to you, Todd, tell me how you feel.
Well, that's a paradigm shift, isn't it?
Totally. Because first of all, it means I really want to know how you're feeling. And secondly, it comes with a whole different level, a different dynamic of vibration.
Yeah. Sure does.
Yeah.
I remember 10 years ago when I was first getting all my information, and I knew that writing was going to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
I remember being told a few times, do not use negative connotations in your writing. And I thought, well, what does that mean? Don't use don't, or doesn't, or can't, or won't. But I realized that it wasn't that. It was how you explain things.
Absolutely.
It's like what you're saying, basically. Not saying no.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild, because we know, KNOW, that from the earliest parts of our lives, our programming began with the word no.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. No, you can't do that. That's bad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when I'm training teachers to work with the children, they say to me, how can I praise a child when I know that it's wrong? If a child says, I see red, and points to green, obviously it's incorrect. And I say to them, you're not praising the child for being wrong. You're praising the child for just speaking, for trying, for doing their best. But the most important thing about language right now, other than how we use it, is the authenticity that it comes with.
Mm-hmm. Is it in alignment with what the person's feeling?
Absolutely.
Because we can feel the energy louder now.
Yes.
That's a great point.
And it's becoming more intense.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us have become shapeshifters in such a way that if I'm teaching a class and I'll demonstrate or I'll share something with them, and one or two don't understand, then as a facilitator, a teacher, it's up to me to be able to shapeshift into their level of understanding, that I can reword that sentence for them to understand. And that might be 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
But the core of that intention of what I'm saying is steadfast, but wording it in several different ways that different people understand it, then that's where the true essence of a facilitator comes into his or her own.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Being in a medium where I'm having conversations all the time, and now what am I going to do? How do I ask questions? I just thought that.
Tell me, share with me, or explain to me.
It's a great. Because it engages the right side of the brain.
Yeah.
As opposed to the analytical, logical, rational. Okay, got you.
Exactly.
It brings on the feminine energy.
Yeah. It basically, it means the heart speaks instead of the brain.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
That's something to think about in coming to these shows.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
It will change the vibration enormously.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it right now and seeing that it's, because I'm a big believer. Well, I was told this 10 years ago. like many of us were like, what do I do with all this? What do I, or go do this? Well, how do I do that? Or how do I get out of the situation? And I would just hear, create your way out, and whatever you do, don't do anything that's been done before, because that's the old thing. So what do? We ask questions before. And the thing about asking questions, although that's not, well, I was going to say that's not really applicable here on this show, but when you ask questions, there is a certain level of orchestration or even manipulation or agenda. You go buy a car. I used to sell cars when I was young, when I first was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And they teach you. Somebody comes on you get a duck on the pond. You walk up to him. Hello, how are you? What are you looking for, a 2-door or a 4-door? Would you like a green or a blue? And you just keep asking questions until you end up, right? That's manipulation. They call it salesmanship. But think of the same thing. If I'm having a conversation with you, and it might be innocent, but maybe my agenda is to find out something. I mean, it's thought provoking, and to me, that's always a great sign to consider something like that. And it's not been the norm.
Exactly. And when you command an answer rather than question it, what you'll find is that the conversation will go into a beautiful flow, more than stopping to have to think about what to say next. And also what we find, and I find it with a lot of people, that if there's nothing to be said, there's amazing beauty in the silence.
Well, when you said that to me about tell me how you feel, I'm thinking, I can't think of specific instances, but I can think of certain people in my life, right? That would ask me that, or not ask me. They would say that to me, and I can remember how I felt. Like in this moment, it's, what is it? Maybe it's the multidimensional memory coming in, but I can remember it's an empathic frequency.
It is.
Versus, let me think about that for a second. You're right.
So when we work with the children for an hour, we don't say no, we don't ask a question, and we constantly praise them for one whole hour. And that hour could be the most precious hour of a child's life. That sets them up to understand what compassion is, and understanding. And then we take them through 10 or 12 sessions. So they've had all of that time of being praised and honored in such a way that they're totally respected by another human being. But can you begin to imagine, or let me rephrase that, Todd, begin to imagine if every human being was treated that way?
Yeah. I went to the donut shop this morning. I don't normally do that, but I got up at 6:00 this morning, and there was a line. I've never been at the donut shop at 6:00 in the morning, because I'm usually going to sleep at 6:00 in the morning. But there was like 5 or 6 people in front of me. So I came in the door, and I'm literally just standing in line. And I go there, but I go through the drive-through normally, like at 11:00 in the afternoon if I go. And so the Asian lady that owns the place starts waving and pointing, hi, and waving. And I start waving back, because it made me just fill up with joy. But I realized that she was waving at the little girl, the 5-year-old, 6-year-old little girl that was in front of me in a Halloween costume dressed as a princess.
Oh.
But it's funny you're saying this, because what you're saying is what she was receiving. And it even happened to me. I was full of wow, I'm important. You're going to wave at me, but even though she wasn't, but
Yeah, but it's
it's a
joy,
good,
isn't it?
yeah,
It's the pure essence of joy.
yeah,
You know, I I love life, and I'm not delusional that there's points of life where sometimes, you know, you think, why is it happening? What are these challenges for? You know, we go through major shifts in life, energetic shifts, earth shifts, life shifts. But wouldn't it be a sad day if we couldn't be grateful for all of it?
yeah,
For recognizing that a difficult challenge is an opportunity to grow.
yeah,
Recognizing that those moments of joy are to show you how it can be all the time. Um, you know, you know this, and many of the listeners will know it, that in ancient times they used to have the mystery schools, and they particularly had them in ancient Egyptian times. And you were chosen to go to one of these mystery schools, and you would go for a week, a month, a year, however long it took to go through to another level of enlightenment. And you would go through many challenges in the mystery school in order for you to overcome elements of yourself that would hold you back to becoming more enlightened. So if we just take fear as being one of them, and one of the challenges would be that, you know, they'd had this underwater maze and you had to swim through it holding your breath, knowing that there were crocodiles in the maze. Okay, so it was about overcoming fear. So several years ago, I was actually in Egypt, and I was sitting meditating on the beach, and I said to Anna, I said, you know, why don't we have mystery schools now? Why
hmm,
don't we have these places to go where we can become enlightened in a much more prolific way through overcoming these challenges? And she said, because you don't need them. And I said, but surely we do. I said, we can't, you know, claim to be an enlightened race of human beings because it's fraught with negativity. And she said, no, you don't need the schools to attend. She said, because your life is the mystery school.
right,
And she said, every challenge that you experience on an individual level is as if you were attending a mystery school.
yeah, that's
And
true.
and and I got really excited, and because, you know, like a lot of us, our lives have been challenged in so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I got so excited because if I've had that many challenges, I've been chosen.
That's what I'm saying,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like, like we forget. I think, or I would put it a different way. Part of the remembering for me is pulling from the power, pulling from the power um, of the aspect of me or me that chose to come here in the first place. Because
Yes,
there's a lot to be said for that. There's I earned it.
yes,
Um, I chose to come here knowing that I could handle it. I mean, there's just so much to pull from that.
yes. But in those moments of being challenged, we're being given the opportunity to step up into the next level.
Yeah.
And you know, if I like, I lost count on how many challenges I've had in my 56 years, but I'm grateful for every single one of them
Yeah.
because it's enabled me to become this person.
Yeah.
So if we look at treating other human beings with the absolute respect that, you know, as teachers with the children, that we respect their light, and then everybody sees that every challenge has been an opportunity to grow, we could check out now because that job would be done.
True.
But we can't because there's still much more work to do. And I don't have a problem with that because I'll stay here for as long as I need to fulfill my purpose and my connection and my role in consciousness. However, the shift that needs to happen now is for us to recognize everything that we are and everything that we're not, in order to become that next better version of ourselves, to simply inspire others to do it.
Well, I think there's something to be said too. Like Wild Rose CC, thank you for the comment. But she's like, I could have done without challenges. Can I be honest here? But yeah, I mean, many a true word spoken in jest, right? I mean, but
Absolutely.
I, I, but I guess what I'm saying is we've all felt that way at times.
Absolutely.
So, but
Many times.
it's also inevitable. Like it's like part of what you're saying is to accept that we've made this choice.
Yes.
Nobody stuck us here, right?
No.
There's free will. We think of free will in the earth plane, but there was free will to come here. So that's part of what's happening is accepting, or you can almost say taking responsibility
Yes.
for what we came here to do. And really what we came here to do is the life journey of a soul. A soul goes from one scenario to another scenario. Why? To expand, to experience and expand,
to grow in knowledge and wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and we can do that in a human living body.
Yeah,
we don't have to be pure light to do that, because we are pure light, except we're housed in a sacred temple that we could utilize to our full advantage in order to expand before we check out. You know, and we have so many opportunities to do that. And I fully agree. You know, we could do without the challenges. However, they are our biggest opportunities to learn and grow.
There are masterpieces. They are our genius, inspirational ideas put into material form. So, I mean, COVID, I remember Morgan saying this last year, you know, right in the first part of COVID, and they were coming through, that information was coming through her channelings at night. And I just remember one night she got like this big smile on her face. And she's like, oh my God, do you realize what an incredible, ingenious stroke of genius this whole thing is that we've created? And if you think about it, it is. If you don't look at the quarantines and the mandates and all that, and the vaxes and all that, and you look at the individual expansion that's occurred in individuals, therefore the collective, since March of 2020, there's a reason that 2021 is bigger than all the years combined before it. And it's not because of the level of distortion, it's because of the level of expansion. I think we can own that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we don't own it, that's when the shifts will get difficult.
Yeah, that's right, because the universe doesn't take any shift.
No, exactly. Exactly. But then neither do we.
Well, at this stage in the game too, it's like I was talking to my friends last night, and you know, it's like, back to what you said earlier, be careful what you say, especially to yourself, which is, oh, I got this. Oh, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any narcissistic tendencies. You know, I'm always, you know, perfect. No, I mean, it's not like we're being punished. It's just we're expanding and having a wider scale of awareness, and we're seeing things that we just couldn't see before. I mean, this is not rocket science, but accepting those things as they come, facing those things as they come, is a lot easier. A straight line is a lot better than a roundabout way on this path. And we've tended to get outside the the straight path because that's how the programming led us. But we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a prime example of how not to use language. One of my dearest and closest friends, a couple of years ago, she was having a pretty rough time, and she basically said that she wanted a break. She wanted to have the summer off of work, and she needed time out for herself. You know how that came about? She slipped in the shower and broke her shoulder. And then she had to have the whole of the summer off because she couldn't function. Now that, and we laugh about it because, you know, she's just one of my dearest friends. But we always say, be mindful what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Use the energy of your heart to request, not the brain to demand, if you like.
Yeah. That's important.
Yeah. It's very important.
Back to the words, right? And self-speak.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But you know, when I talk to people about the levels of awareness that are required in this time in order to progress and evolve and grow in the ways that we can, those levels of awareness are when you are simultaneously listening, observing, and intuiting on all levels. And people might like to hear this. So when I'm coaching people to expand those levels of awareness, I use the scenario of a video camera. Okay, so if I was to go to the shopping mall and I had a video camera playing the whole time, okay, the lens would have its view, the microphone would pick up all the sounds, but a video camera picks up everything, absolutely everything, within its vision and its capacity to record sound. And when we become spiritually aware after having awoken, effectively, for us to be the level of observer and listener that we need to feel fully in line with our intuition, is that we become human video recorders. So when we're going about our daily business, or we're going anywhere or doing anything, we should be automatically recording within the heart space everything we see and everything we don't see, everything we hear and everything we don't hear. And in that rewinding of the video and the recall, we should be able to sit there and recall the journey that we just took and see things and hear things in that recall that we didn't take in consciously.
Wow, that's a good point. Because we are video recording. We always have been.
Absolutely.
We haven't tapped into it. And you think about you know what people say about run everything through the heart, and you think it's about making a decision or a feeling, but you can actually do what you're saying. You can rerun the day through your heart.
Yes,
It's almost like seeing through your heart as you review the day.
exactly, because if I recall my day, I get so excited when I'm recalling it, and wow, I didn't see that lady with the red coat first time round.
Yeah.
Or I didn't hear that bird song earlier on. So when we can get to that level of recall through the observing and listening, then the level of intuition, it rockets. But that conscious spiritual awareness is the listening, the observing, and the intuiting simultaneously on all levels of our consciousness. And that is through the absolute practice of self-awareness.
Yeah. That's a good point. We often think I need to or I want to, or let me tap into the Akashic. Let me connect to, whatever part of the morphic field that I'm interested in or whatever. But you're talking about tapping into ourselves,
Totally.
tapping into the experience, because the experience is a teacher.
Yeah.
That's where the info is, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had lunch earlier on. I can taste every mouthful again.
Yes, I can relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. I can. I went to the supermarket, the food hall, and I can recall my whole journey
Mm.
around that food hall. Um, and for me, it's not because I go in there to say I will remember. It's just that I've trained myself to be that consciously aware that I don't have to remember anymore, because it's all part of that spherical way of living.
Yeah.
Because when you live spherically rather than in linear time, it's all happening at the same time anyway. The past, the present, and the future are simultaneous.
Yes.
So in the recall, it's because it's already happening now, even though I did it 3 or 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
And someone said to me once, do you not enjoy accessing your past lives? And I said, I don't need to access them because they're happening now. And if there's something from that past life that will aid or be of benefit for my highest good, it's there.
Yeah. When you need it.
Yes.
Shows, yeah, you're right. And also with the, I never understood early on, but I understood that when I got things, the past, present, and future merged. But I didn't understand what that meant. But it's what you're saying. It's like from that moment, whatever the frequency was, whatever the coding was, from that point on, there was something different. Like it would be available at a conscious level when it was needed.
Yes.
And then the other thing about where people talk about you change your present, you're changing we think of changing the future, changing the trajectory of the future, but you can change the past. It's like time traveling.
You
It's
can
like,
change all of it in one
yeah,
single moment.
yeah, very, very good point.
Yeah. And what we have to be very aware of is that it always has to be for the highest good.
Yeah, it has
You
to
know?
be. It has to be.
Yeah. But when you reach levels of awareness and consciousness, one of the things, Todd, that it comes with is massive levels of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know that if we can prove the level of responsibility that we're capable of, then we receive more and more abilities, or we channel more, or we have more available to us. So it's like we have this huge vat of sources to tap into, but depending on how you handle it and how you work with it with responsibility, more and more becomes available.
Yes. Yeah, that
You know,
responsibility is integrity. I
totally.
mean, when I say integrity, I mean like integrity is 100 is a 24/7 kind of deal. The universe, you can't bullshit the universe. I mean,
No,
you can't even a little step out of integrity. You're
exactly.
not
It,
going to get that you're not going to get that gift. You're going to get a gift. It's just going to be like a kick in the butt gift. It's going to be one of those, and
yeah,
we don't, like you were saying earlier, we don't have to do that anymore.
no. I was teaching a group the other week about how to work with the vagus nerve healing.
Hmm.
And I demonstrated on one of the women on how to tone the vagus nerve. And then they were working in pairs. And of course, her vagus nerve was already toned. So the lady that was going to work with her to do the healing modality said, what do I do? Her nerve is already toned. And I said to the other lady, do I have permission to undertone your vagus nerve. And she said, yes, but how are you going to do that? And I just literally waved my hand. And when she checked the vagus nerve, it had no tone at all. Now, she said, but you just waved your hand. I said, yes, I did. I said, but that's the level of responsibility I accept to take on for your highest good and for the people that you're with. But if I didn't have that integrity, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, it is a massive level of responsibility. But then what you are aligning with is that consciousness, that light, that you have the complete blessing of consciousness to be what you need to be.
Yeah. Intention.
Totally, yeah.
Intention, the integrity, the intention. The universe supports that. That's a big deal now. I mean, it's pretty obvious now. If regardless of the roller coaster aspect, such as October, that was a perfect example. But that when you hang in there, when you have the integrity, take the responsibility, take the ownership, don't project it or externalize it, that the universal energy is supporting us in a huge way too, like
Yeah.
huge expansions,
Yeah.
just like overnight snap.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what people aren't realizing, that some of us have worked for years to get to that level, but actually it doesn't have to take that long anymore.
Mm-mm. Millennia.
Yes.
Some thousands of years.
Aeons.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah. Yeah. But we have some exciting times ahead.
I agree.
Very exciting. And all of the shift that we've been dealt over the years, it's paying off now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It really is. And some people will have had an easy ride and some people will have had a difficult ride. It's totally irrelevant, because it's unique to the individual that adds to the collective. So if some people are having a good month and some people are not having a good month, it's completely balancing out for the greatest good one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're not in this on our own. Mm-hmm. And anybody that tries to stand alone or thinks they're alone, then that level of awareness to know that you're not alone will get you through anything.
Yeah. The level of awareness that you're not alone gets you. Yeah. It's weird. It's always a paradox, because when you feel like you're totally, or like, there's that point where you're like totally alone. It's not being alone, but like you realize no one's going to do this for me. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do this myself. I'm going to have to be responsible. I'm going to have to be in integrity. I'm going to have to be authentic, transparent. I'm in charge of my own transformation.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's something bigger than us that's happening anyway.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
just so many, like so many streams of what we've been doing and developing over the last 10 years are being altered dramatically, such as the role of a practitioner.
Yeah.
Which I think goes to what you were saying, which is really the same thing again. It's the higher level of responsibility that it requires and integrity, because if the field itself is expanding, then we have to expand with it in order to stay in congruence with it.
Yeah.
If not, then we become what was an asset now becomes something that is what we might say is lower vibrational. It used to be a higher vibrational. It used to be something that pulled people up, but now,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's interesting how,
So
yeah.
tell me, what's the difference between loneliness and separation?
That's a good question.
It was a command. It wasn't a question.
I mean, that's a thought-provoking command. What's the difference between separation and loneliness? There is a difference to me. Because loneliness doesn't mean I'm not standing right next to you, to me. Loneliness is like one of the choices on the menu of life that, as souls, we came in to experience until we've had enough of it. I mean, there's information in loneliness. Separation is separation. Separation is not even Todd being here alone for months in isolation. That's not separation. That's just not the same thing. Separation is, I see you, you're not me. I'm better than you, or you're better than me. All that crap. Division, separation. Separation is, I'm going to get a jab, you're not. I'm a good person, you're not. Or, that whole separate. You know what separation is to me? And I saw it again today. Why is it that people can't put up a post? I want to hopefully see one day the Soulogy network website become what I was shown, but that's not the issue. My point is, if I ever was part of a group like Soulogy that created a alternative to Facebook, let's just say,
Yeah.
I would strongly consider saying it'll look just like it, but you can't comment on people's posts. And the reason for that is, why do we have to contradict, make people wrong? You want to see people say, well, when are we going to know if we're enlightened? When you can stop contradicting and separating yourself from someone else because they're expressing themselves.
Yeah.
There's an importance to being able to express ourselves now. That's part of our growth. You can talk about it in the context of, you see all these women coming out. They're all coming out. Why are they coming out now? Because they finally feel safe. What were they afraid of? Well, they were afraid of thousands and thousands of years of oppression in their DNA.
That's right.
Right? So if it's important that they can come out and not feel ridiculed or embarrassed or threatened, then let's lend ourselves to that and catch ourselves when we have to make somebody wrong, which means we have to be right, which is the separation. Well, I mean,
it is.
It's funny.
But loneliness is a consequence of separation.
Loneliness is a consequence of separation. Yeah. Yes. So if I'm one of those women and I step up and I have the courage, I hear them, so many of them will say, I've got to do this. And then somebody makes fun of me. Then I go back into my cave. Right. And I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because when we speak from integrity and we speak for the whole, then we're speaking in unity consciousness. But if we are lonely because of separation, not physical separation, but duality consciousness, then we're always going to have an opposite.
If we're lonely.
I could walk into a crowded room and feel lonely, but that's because I've created an element of separation in my consciousness. But if I walk into a crowded room and feel part of every person in that room, then I'm steeped in unity consciousness, and that's where we're heading.
Mm-hmm.
You can't feel lonely in unity consciousness, whether you never speak to another living soul for the rest of your life. But that's the shift in consciousness that we are working towards, and is happening so fast.
Yes. Yes. God, how do you ask questions now? I was going to ask you a question. Like, I can't ask questions anymore. Wait.
Tell me.
On what you just said.
Yes.
On what you just said. I feel
Explain to me.
God, how do you make a command? What? No. Tell me what your thoughts are in regard to accelerating timelines, but particularly about October.
Okay.
Did you get okay?
Absolutely. So if we look at an accelerated timeline, we're looking at a period of Earth time either contracting or expanding in order to progress through a situation or an experience that you come out the other side with the least line of resistance.
October seemed to be an acceleration.
It is an acceleration, but it can also be a contracted period of time where we move through it with grace and ease, with that least line of resistance, or an expanded period of time that's fraught with like obstacles and challenges that make it seem as though it's going slow. So if we go through an accelerated time span to get through a period with grace and ease, then we are living in the moment of every minute of every day in spherical time.
Yeah.
Because if there's a challenge in October, November's already happening as well.
I look at October. Well, I look at how do you say this? I look at it different now. Like, I don't really see it as a challenge. I don't see things. I'm not seeing things as challenges. Like, this whole thing with Franco's been weird. If I look at it from my old eyes, like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling guilty? Almost, not fully. Why am I almost feeling guilty because of how little I'm feeling from the old, parts of me? And yet it's almost like you look at what everyone might consider what that is in this person, a person or a soul in a person's body. The connection is getting bigger, yet the physical vessel is no longer here. Like,
exactly.
looking, at the videos that we collaborated on, just putting some files together and looking at a couple, segments here and there. It just wasn't. I didn't get emotional. It wasn't like that. It wasn't. It didn't even happen when I was told at 5:00 in the morning. It wasn't. It didn't happen. It's a different thing, right?
Tell me why anybody should experience guilt.
You mean from the soul perspective or from the human perspective?
Any perspective.
Well, I think it's like loneliness, or lots of things. Like, I think we came down here to experience things only the human. I want to say only the human, but that the human experience could provide in the most extreme way. So we can really get a feel for it. So we can feel what an emotion is and feel what something like guilt is, or shame, or whatever. But as
Yeah.
far as like in the moment, or like say now, it's not. It's like it's not a. Like it's like I know. First of all, if my and I'm just speaking like as all of us,
Yeah.
like the experience of guilt is fading.
Yes.
It's like being saturated. But could I feel it if I step out of integrity, even in the smallest way or something like that? Absolutely. Could I get through it very quickly? Absolutely. I'm not saying that from a cocky standpoint. I'm just
Yeah.
saying sometimes we fall into a little loop and we get over it very quickly. Now, where it used to be, it's like you're saying earlier, everything's moving fast now,
It
including
is.
those. Yeah.
So as I receive guidance, we are human beings, okay, and we mustn't lose sight of the fact that we're here having a human experience.
Mm.
And we are allowed to experience every single one of the emotions that a human being can experience, because that's integral to who we are. However, in that moment of having an experience, even if it's just 1 millisecond of guilt, the art in elevating into that level of consciousness that transcends the negative emotions
Mm-hmm.
is acknowledging the emotion and immediately releasing it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because it clouds the information, right?
Absolutely.
Like
And
here's
it
the
becomes,
information. Yeah, I got you.
yeah,
That's
and it becomes an accumulation
mm-hmm.
of one tiny aspect of a negative emotion that compounds into a day, a week, a month, or a year.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are in expanded consciousness and we have an emotion that we might perceive to be negative, the art in releasing it quickly is that the vibration of the emotion may drop, so long as the expansion of the field doesn't come in at the same time. So if we're in an expanded field of light and somebody has a negative emotion and it plummets, the vibration plummets within the field, as long as that field stays in an expanded way, then it's like the emotion, the vibration will drop, and it's as if it hits a trampoline and comes straight back up again.
Mm-hmm.
But if the field crumbles in around the emotion, then it's so much harder to go into expansion and a higher vibration quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many of these emotions for particular people or particular events have we held on to long? We're talking years and years, right?
But
I mean,
I might have said it before, but when the ego was created, like 13,000 plus years ago, at that time of the fall, we have an Akash, but so does the ego.
yeah.
You have a soul Akash and an ego Akash. And the ego will know every single one of your triggers through all of the lifetimes and the experiences where it's had to either assist you to survive or take control of the human being through the negative emotions. So those negatives, those triggers, when I work with people to bring the ego in line with the spirit, I give them a list. I mean, there must be 50 negative emotions on the list that they can say, tick, put a tick beside, yes, I've experienced this one and this one and this one and this one. None of them are wrong.
Right.
So what we're aiming to do right now is to recognize the triggers and enable those triggers not to lower the vibration of our light, so that the spirit, the soul aspect of the human being can take forward to an outcome rather than a consequence.
Right. Gotcha.
And loneliness is a consequence of separation, or the illusion of separation.
Yeah.
Maybe
The
I should
illusion
say.
of separation.
Yeah.
The illusion of death.
Yeah.
Loneliness. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we had this sister of ours was on yesterday, and she started telling us, and she's very, very sensitive, ultra sensitive. She doesn't come out too often, and but she was telling this story that happened to her in October,
Mm.
and she had been separated pending a divorce for 15 years with her ex. Now she's moved on, she's got kids, and
Yeah.
and they've never settled, right? They've never consummated the divorce because of pride.
Mm.
That's a short version. So
Mm.
she reached that point where she let go of the emotion. So
Yeah.
after 15 years, she hits the guy up and says, "You just give me whatever you want." And he just recoiled and said, "Wait a minute, you can't do that. The war will be over, basically."
Yeah. Yeah.
And but yet, what you said occurred. That it dropped and bounced right up, and they both basically came back to love.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. And it's the love and respect have to go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And loving and respecting are the fundamental basics of a spiritual life. Um, I'll tell you a story about a family who had become very dysfunctional, and the parents were angry with each other. They were constantly fighting. They had two little girls, and the parents were on the verge of divorce. And so the energy within that household was as low as it could be, having a very negative effect on two little girls, on the mother, the father, the whole dynamic. And one of the little girls went through the ICU program that we do, and you could see her persona, her whole essence changing. Now, she didn't go home to her sister and to her parents and share what she did, because these children, it's very natural to them to go through the program itself. But by the end of the program, the parents fell in love again. So in 10 or 12 weeks, the whole dynamic of the family changed, because one little girl took her vibration so high that it had a massive impact on the whole family, and the parents fell in love.
yeah, yeah, that's becoming a bigger factor in our awareness too. And
Absolutely
that's
it
my
is.
point earlier about this whole thing with how it's interesting that the death, uh, that the physical transition
Patient.
program is it's in the light worker circles.
Yeah.
Like when I found out about Franco and Kimberly called me.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 5 days after, because we both got it on the same day. We both came down with something on the same day, whatever it
Yeah.
was. But because she specifically said to me, "It's bad."
Yeah.
He told me he doesn't know if he wants to stick around. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to do something." But I knew not to do, "Hey, everybody, let's send him." It had to be an equilibrium. It had to be open to what, because again, there's no time, right? Think of all he's sent out
Yeah.
and her.
Yeah.
And so now you want to send, but it's an equal energy exchange. So that was what I was
Yeah.
trying to, and I don't know how well I did it, but obviously there was a lot of grief. There was a lot of, but it was at least my intentions, right? But my point is, it's interesting because, like, I received 3 letters from 3 different ladies who had sent me messages of grief and loneliness or loss. And within 2 or 3 days, they sent me new messages that were much longer, explaining to me how they had realized that they weren't grieving Franco, they were grieving themselves, that it had nothing to do with
Exactly.
Franco, it had to do with them, that they weren't grieving the loss of Franco, they were grieving the loss of losing themselves. And I went,
Exactly.
bingo, right? So
Yeah,
that's a very interesting and a very positive sign to me.
absolutely. You know, I've always questioned when people go to funerals who they're actually crying for.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see a death and a funeral as a gift to humanity to release emotions that could kill somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a very heavy comment, but it's
Yeah.
also very accurate if you think about it, because you get things pent up inside of you. And I've been
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
And you can do things that are not cool. Um,
Exactly.
so that's a
Because
really,
because you know, disease is dis-ease.
yeah.
And if we don't have an opportunity to release the pent-up emotions within us, then it will become a disease and kill us. So is a funeral, is the death of somebody an opportunity to release an emotion that prevents your own death?
Or prevent you from hurting somebody else,
Exactly.
which is you anyway, right? We hurt
Exactly.
somebody else for hurting ourselves.
If I've told you this before, then please tell me. But my sister died when she was 8 years of age. Okay, I was 9 and she was 8, and she died from a rare form of cancer. And we're talking a long time ago. And I became very invisible to my parents because they were rightly grieving for the loss of a child, which nobody would expect to do in their whole lifetime.
Right.
And and so several years ago, I sat with consciousness and I said, you know what, I would really love to understand why Sarah died when she did. I'd like to know why she died like she did and why it had such a negative impact on my life. And they said, good, we're glad you've asked these questions because you're ready for the answer. And they said that in the short 8 years that she was on her life, she fulfilled every purpose that she came to do. Okay. And the reason she had a very rare form of cancer, because part of her soul choice was to aid medical science in understanding, even if it's a tiny bit, about this type of cancer. Okay. So I said, right, okay, I understand that. So why did my life become so painful? And they said, because that was her gift of freedom to you.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't understand that, because I did not feel free. Although I felt lonely and isolated and unloved, it wasn't a sense of freedom. And they said to me, what you need to understand is through your sister's death, your life could have gone in two directions. And they said the direction it took was the gift of freedom to become the person that you are. And I said, well, was the alternative route easier or harder? And they said, harder. And I said, how could it have possibly been harder? And they said, because the alternative choice on your soul path was your parents going into the fear of the same thing happening to you.
Like overprotection
Absolutely.
would have put, almost like put you on a pedestal, like would have created like almost like a
Suffocated me.
what's that?
Or suffocated me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what. Yes, and almost like a gift of like a frequency of an entitlement developed
Yeah,
in you because everything comes so easy, and yeah, that would have been great for a kid, but hell on the adult. You would
absolutely.
have been you would have been
But then I
aligning.
understood.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then I understood why my sister's death was my gift of freedom.
Yeah, yeah. She was your collaborator.
Totally. And she was the one who got me on a path of enlightenment,
Mm.
because from the level of consciousness that she's in, she kicked my butt. you know, and now she works with me non-stop, and you know, we probably have a closer relationship now than if she'd still been alive. So the way I'm going with this, and you know, I firmly believe that when we can do more from the other side of consciousness than the life side, then the soul checks out. Because I've always said the likes of musicians and artists and authors and actors, singers, songwriters, when they pass over in early stages of their life rather than reach an old age, it's because they can become the source of the channel for more people than they could reach when they were alive.
Yeah. Well, and look at Jesus.
Exactly. So whilst it's a sad time in the lives of those people that are connected to Franco or have followed him or admire him, he can do more from where he is now than he could when he was here. And that's why there should be no guilt or sadness.
That's right. Because it's not about him.
It is never about any of us.
And you know, Kimberly wants to come on.
Yeah.
She feels it's extremely important to come on. I talk to her every other day, you know, like this. And I'm not going to go into too much, but I will say, and you can read between the lines, everybody, she looks absolutely radiant.
Yeah.
Her energy, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
But and yes, I think an individual, anybody that has the urge to step forward to put that other side of the situation frequency in front of us so that we can see it and be exposed to the code, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, let's go for it.
Yeah. The greatest the greatest challenge in negative emotions is the level of expectation.
Yeah. Yeah. Look what I did out of love for you. And you don't appreciate it. Or,
yeah,
you know, I mean, that's like my friend's thing with the divorce of 15 years. What was that? Expectation? Where did it come from? To love and be loved?
Yeah.
And that's
It's
what I was
unconditional.
laughing when she told me. I was just like, wow, so you guys still love each other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't mean you have to be cohabitating or, you know, it just acknowledge it. And it's all, it was just an amazing story at a synchronistic time.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And then, you know, when we look at how we've been in the male dominant energy for 13,000 years, and now we've gone into that cycle of the female energy, you know, so many people are coming into their own because that there's no expectation of the masculine or the feminine being the dominant energy. It's about the equality and the balance that we can strike within us.
Yeah. Touche. That's a great comment to end the show on. That's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It felt like it was 20 minutes.
Oh, my word.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed these collaborations. A couple of people said a couple of really nice things.
Wonderful.
It's nice, and I'm happy to do it. Thank you again. And
You're
did
welcome.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, we'll reach out to you. But yeah, thanks again, and best to you and your family, and thank you for everything you do. One of these times, we're going to have to dive into your ICU program and just get
yeah, that would be lovely.
maybe even just do a show on just what that is. I mean, God, if you
Yeah.
have video of it, or just wow, that's because
Yeah.
you speak of it, and I know I asked you a little bit about it one time, but that just sounds like some powerful, powerful stuff happening with those kids.
It's profound. It really is, and it's such a blessing.
I bet it is. Yeah. Well, I'll see you when I see you the next time. And
yes, you know where I am, and love to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
We'll be back in 2.5 hours with somebody. Bye-bye.